Kum Lenin Ablat Gemara. We are up to the Ayin Beis Amad Aleph, and certain things that the husband imposes upon his wife makes it unbearable. And we say that if so, you have to let her divorce her and reimburse her. So the last thing we learned was that he forces her to take things out to the tip, and he makes her look foolish. And by causing her to look foolish, he has to reimburse her as well and divorce her. So we're up to towards the end, about 6 lines above the Mishnah. Omar Rav Kahana. The last line is Omar Rav Kahana. So we also talked about if he tries to isolate her from her family and from her friends or social life, it also impedes her normal life, and he has to let her go. Says the Gemara, Omar Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana said, if a person makes a neder on his wife, I don't want you shaloi tisho shaloi tashla. I don't want you to borrow from anybody. I don't want you to lend anybody. Enough of the kibra b'rechayim b'taner, the different kinds of sieves or a mill or an oven. I don't want you to have any, I guess, relations with other people. You have to divorce her and give her a ksuva. Why? Shemasiya shem ra. You are basically creating a bad name for her, that she's very stingy. She refuses to lend to others, and you can't do that. Again, you are humiliating her. Tainamach, we learn. We're talking about.
I'm sorry, I'm reading on back.
Okay. Tainamach, we learned. If somebody makes a neder to his wife, I don't want you, and he tries to interdict her from shalai tisho, shalai tashel, don't borrow and don't lend. Enough of a give it a chaim v'tana. These examples we just gave before, the different kinds of sieves and mill and oven. He has to divorce him. He basically is creating a terrible name for her. Likewise, if she made neder that she won't borrow or lend, not for give it a chaim v'tana, and she won't weave beautiful clothes for her children. Then she goes out without a ksuva. Why? Because now she's passing a terrible name for him, and that they're stingy and frugal, and so on. And he just wants her kids to look well dressed and well kempt, and therefore it reflects on the parents. So he divorces her, but she forfeits her ksuva. Mishnah. Now the Mishnah says there are certain women that you can divorce and they forfeit the ksuva, and we had before whether they actually should. The following women actually forfeit their rights to ksuva because of their behavior. Number one, we have two parts of two kinds of traditions. There's Das Moshe, there's Das Yehuda. Das Moshe is what's written in the Torah. This is a mitzvah, it's incumbent, and the Rabbon as well. Das Yehuda is more like a minik. Yeah, this is the Yiddish way of doing things. Exactly. So, Das Moshe, women who transgresses the tradition of Moshe, the Torah, or Yehuda, Das Yehuda is the tradition of the Yidden. This is a minik they didn't have, even though it's not written anywhere. Those two, if she decides to breach those laws, you divorce her and she forfeits her ksuva. That's Yehudis. In Sneeze itself, you do have a little bit of Das Moshe. Shmuel gives some absolute rules, and then you have the local place. That's Yehudis, exactly. Now, we're talking about avedas that affect him. Avedas that affect only her. If she eats trade, for example, she does not forfeit a ksuva. Why that should be different? We'll talk about in a minute. She feeds him food that she did not take ma'isa from, so this affects him. She doesn't tell him that she's a niddah when they have relations. Doesn't remove the challah from the bread that she makes. She makes vows and she doesn't fulfill her vows. Now, if she makes vows and doesn't fulfill her vows, that only impacts herself, doesn't impact her husband. So why is this an example of that she treats him like ksuva? We'll soon see in the Gemara, because it actually does impact on the family, based on the Gemara we had in Shabbos. So that's Das Moshe. We gave examples. Trey, Maisa, Nida. These are all dinim in the Torah. And the Rabbam. This is what means Jewish tradition. She goes outside, her head uncovered. Does not cover the tichel or a wig. Now, why does that come under Das Yehuda stigma? We'll discuss. Because it's a mitzvah. You have to. Next is v'tava b'shuk. Let's say they're out in the street, in the market, in the public, and they are weaving and sewing in front of themselves, and we'll see why that's wrong. It's pritzes. Let's say she's very talkative and she talks to, or she socializes with all the men. Again, so we're choishes for might lead to nus and all that, and pritzes and forbidden. Abba shalom at af hamakalelis yoyladav b'fanav. If she curses out their children or his children in front of her husband. Again, it's embarrassing, but that's Yud. It's not menstrual, it's not the right thing to do, it's not das Torah. Abtarfa says, Af HaKoloni, she has a very loud voice, and their intimate conversation can be heard by everybody. She's a better. Oh, she's a better terbesa when you're talking in the house, which they can hear. Talking about intimate moments, and the neighbors can hear. Okay, Gemara. Let's go through each one of these. Das trade. We said, for example, she gives them to eat something which is not ma'aser. Hey, what are you talking about? Eat the yada. If you knew that it was no ma'aser, let him walk away. And he if he didn't know them in no yada, so how did he find out? Even if she told him, maybe she was just joking. The Omer, like she says, look, I didn't do this, that kohen, he gave them ma'aser. He went and asked him, he didn't trust her, and he found out that she was lying. We had the beginning of that, a way you can mevarer, why not mevarer yourself as well? Again, the same question. Hey, what do you mean she was a nida? Either yada ba nifresh. If you knew that she was a nida, then why are you together? And he lo yada nisbechalei. If you didn't know, you should trust her. How do you know that a nida can count for herself? It says, "We suffer a loss. She was herself. Lola atma." If she tells you that you trust her implicitly. Here, the Torah clearly says you trust her. In fact, we had in the beginning more gittin. That's how you learn how to eidech them and be surin. So the Gemara, the Amr lay pliny chacham tila. She says that person, I brought him a shaila of blood, and he told me it's not blood at all. But Azul shaila, and he went and he asked her, Bishtakach shikra. Turned out to be, he's never asked such a shaila. So therefore, proven a liar. Who is it? The neighbors saw the clothes that she's wearing. They used to change their clothes. They wear special clothes during the nida period, and they saw her wearing those clothes. So therefore, as far as they're concerned, they established that she is a nida. And then if he had a relation with her, he will get malchus as if he was boila nida, if he was warned by Adam, because they've established the facts. Same thing here.
I'm not sure if she's a terrible person for being a liar, or if he's terrible for being so mistrusting. He checks up on everything she says.
That's true. Yeah. Why is it exactly? Not very good point. Now, Tesis has a very important. Tesis says if a sufferal, with just a little taste inside on the left side, the sufferal asks if she counts herself. Tesis asks a very interesting question. Why don't you find that a nidush counts, makes a bracha when she does the counting of the clean days? Just like the Torah says, but there's a count. We make a bracha, so the Torah tells her to count. Right, the 7 nikim, the 7 clean days. Why doesn't she make a bracha? She should count. The Shleima answers Taisus. The aim of Varchin Ella b'Yevul. You only make a bracha by Yevul. Shemavarchin Bezdin b'Chol Shana. Yevul, they made the Bezdin would count every year. They would make a bracha when they counted. The Torah tells them to count to 49 years. Shala Olam Yuchal Limlas Keseda. Because nothing can take away the fact that every year is another year. The Chain Omer, every day is a new day. Nothing can go wrong. Abel Zava, by a Zava, she imtida. What happens day number 4? Suddenly she sees dam. She has to start all over again. Comes out the brachas that she made till now, a bracha matala. Ein lalima shouldn't count. Which lachayda proves that Teisa hold by Surah Omer. When Surah Omer, you counted 30 days and you forgot to count the next day. What happens? According to one opinion, you no longer continue counting. No, so doesn't it come out you did a bracha vatala? Must be Teisa saying here, and so it seems to quote everybody, that even according to the opinion that says, and this is the Rebbe Shitta, that even according to the opinion that says that you can no longer count Sfiras Omer if you missed in the middle, but whatever you did count is correct. It's not a bracha vatala. Otherwise, you wouldn't make 49 brachas. You wouldn't make 49 brachas, especially Teisa right here, where you can come to a bracha vatala. We don't allow you to make a bracha, just like the woman when she's a zava.
Why is her
make one bracha? Because the bracha is for 7 days.
Is a bracha for 7 days, or is it
No,
for a lot?
yeah.
Count.
You count to get to the 7 days. One long mitzvah, and that thing makes 7 mitzvahs. But one bracha, and bracha always has to be done before the mitzvah. After if you finish counting for 7 days, there's no point making a bracha. So it has to be before the suffer, but you no guarantee that this is clean days. So see clean days, but whatever days you counted is valid. We don't say that it's a bracha or tala. Anyway, let's continue the Gemara. Says the Gemara, when she makes a net and she's not, and she doesn't fulfill her nadarim, that doesn't impact him. What's the reason? Because the Amamar, we're looking at Shabbos, but oven nadarim boni meisim, it does impact the family life. The children, we learn more in the Shabbos that if someone makes a net and doesn't keep them, it affects the children. We look from Psukim, Shnema. It says in the passage there, "Al titin as picha lachtim sarcha." Do not use your mouth to cause yourself sin, your own body. And then it says in the passage finishes off that v'chibel es ma'aseh yadecha, you'll affect ma'aseh yadecha, your handiwork. Ve'ezen ma'aseh yad shel adam, and what is considered the ma'aseh yadecha, your creations? You're impacting on your own children. Nachlas from here. Lashavi cases menechem. Lashav normally says for no reason that I smite your children. Lashav, we're going to darshan lashav al iske shav on empty promises. You made a promise and you never kept it. You breached your promise. Now, what are you talking about? So the Rosh says, another Rishonim said, but if let's say a woman eats treif, then if you want divorce, fine, but you don't. She doesn't give it to you. She gives only kosher. But she personally eats treif. She personally mechal Shabbos, but she won't impact you on your life at all. In that case, there, if you divorce her, you have to give her a ksuvah. So the Mefarshim ask, but there's chorus. If you eat treif chaylev, for example, you get chorus, and chorus means different. Chorus means it impacts on your children. Just like by Nadarim, we say that she forfeits a ksuvah because it affects the children. So chaylev adam should be the same thing. And the answer that the Rosh must hold like Rabbeinu Yein. Rabbeinu Yein says that when we say that chorus, we had in the Moed that chorus impacts on your children, it's only for the Avedas of Arayos. But all other Vedas, like eating treif of fats or eating treif of blood, it does not impact on the children. It only impacts yourself. So therefore, she doesn't forfeit her children. Says the Gemara, Tanya.
So sorry for interrupting. Did you do v'loy kotzalach chala?
You're right. I missed it, and nobody noticed. Sorry, let's go back. V'loy kotzalach chala. Sorry, going back a few lines. Again, the same question. If he knew nifresh, if he didn't know about it, how did he find out? He said that person there who needs, he's the one who took the chal and everything else. Also, Shaila went to ask, so obviously there's something wrong with this whole relationship. It continuously goes on checking after her what she does. Okay. Studying about it further, first white line. Tanya, said, anybody knows about his wife. A may suggest if somebody knows that his wife constantly makes promises and vows and everything else, so she's always in a fit of anger or something, but doesn't fulfill her vows. Now remember, he can annul the vow. He has 24 hours to annul the vow. And let's say he obviously didn't do that. Is make the promise yourself. So how in the world does that help at all? That you make the same promise that she did. For example, she says that should be also to me, and you go ahead and say yes, that should be also to you. What's the point? So get her angry. What you do is you taunt her, get her angry. They should tell them before, so now she should repeat the vow in front of you. And then you have the right to annul it because, and according to some of the Shainim, don't even tell her, so she won't make the vow again. And she thinks the vow is still in place. But that doesn't matter if she breaches, doesn't breach, you don't care. Others say that you just annul the vow. In the it seems like the pshat, you just annul the vow in front of her. And the problem is that you have to be around her all the time because every single minute she can repeat the vow again, and you have 24 hours to annul it. You cannot live with a snake in the same cage. You can't live in the cage, and you have to constantly be on eggshells. You constantly be vigilant. That's not a life. It's not a life because same thing over here. Even though we learned yesterday an interesting saying, exactly the opposite, that a fox does not get hurt. A fox does not get hurt in their own little area. So in other words, you learn how to get around it, but it depends what exactly you're trying to get around. Over there, we're talking about whether she removed all her hair and whether you get entangled in her hair. But over here, constantly to walk around and make sure she doesn't make an edit, that is very, very different. It's impossible. Anybody knows that his wife is not doing the challah. There's a remedy. You don't have to give a divorce. You go ahead and give the challah yourself. Give the maisa yourself. He said, that's not a life. Ain't nothing. You want to live with someone you can totally implicitly trust. If you cannot trust somebody, you have to constantly check up on them. That's not called a life. And she put you in that situation, therefore she forfeits it. Says the one that says over here regarding challah, which is so much easier to do, is koshkein. Yeah. Aha. So surely when it comes to neder, which he just says the words all day, surely you cannot mine, and therefore you get divorced. One says about nedorim, that's not a life, and so on. But when it comes to bread, it doesn't happen that often. That you bake once a week, so therefore you can go ahead and do it, or you how often you eat it, so you can sort of handle it, and therefore she doesn't. If you divorce her, she doesn't forfeit her. Now the next thing the Mishnah says, the Eza Das Yehudis. Then we talk about Das Yehudis. Das Yehudis is Jewish tradition. And the Mishnah gives the first example, Yoitza V'Roisha Perua. That one that she goes out to her head bare head. There's more Roisha Perua that I see. That's not a Jewish tradition, it's in the Torah. Where does the Torah say that a woman has to cover her head? See what said by a woman who's a Saita, you bring it to the Mishnah to shame her, Uparas Roisha Isha, you have to remove, you have to expose her head. So therefore it seems that till now, her head has to be covered. So the Torah clearly says that a woman's head has to be covered, and that's what you do to say to humiliate her. Interesting what Rashi says over there. Rashi in Pasha Nosa, he says, Poras Rajisha, undo her braids. That means, unless what Rashi is saying, they do two things. They used to braid the hair plus put a cover on it, so you do both. Not only you remove her head cover, but you also unbraid her hair. Because she's behaving like a young girl. Now, almost all of the Shem hold that this is mahatayda for a woman to cover here. There is one Rishon Sum Sadeshan and one other, because the other one is that says that it's only the Rabbana. But everyone else is the Raisa. So the Gemara is like this. The Raisa, from the Torah's perspective, Kosa Shapudam. If you would have like a basket, the way Rashi describes this basket is had a basket that went around the head, the handle of the basket went under her chin, and then the basket itself had a top on top of it, and they could put things on top of the head. They used to carry things on the heads. So that kind of thing is that was woven, and there were a lot of gaps. So some of the hair was exposed. So I'll tell you, if you're wearing that kind of a cover where a few hairs are exposed, that's all right. Das Yehudis, what Das Yehudis is, I feel the kosa namiyosa, that even the basket, we don't want any hair exposed. As the Zohar says, not even one hair is allowed to be exposed. So now what our Mishnah is talking about, she's wearing, let's say, a kosa, which is a Jewish tradition. Rabasi said that a kosa, if you're wearing a kosa, there's no problem of perua reish. What does that mean? Havi bar Abzeda. Abzeda tried to understand, hey, where are we talking? Ilema b'shuk, out in the street, we just said Das Yehudis tradition is you're not wear kosa. That one in public, you have to make sure that you wear that your entire hair is covered and nothing's exposed. The Ella b'chatzim. And this is one of the main reasons why the Rebbe said the sheitel is better than a tichel, even though some sefer and others disagree. They say the other way around, the tichel is better than a sheitel. The Rebbe says that a tichel, it's so much easier for hair to be exposed. A sheitel covers the entire head and nothing's exposed. Ella b'chatzim. We're talking about in your courtyard. In your courtyard, that a kosa is good enough. That means a courtyard in those days was almost like an extension of your house. People's house was very, very small. We'll learn about Basra what the definition of a mansion is, which is like only 8 amos. There's nothing. Like a bedroom, our bedrooms are considered a mansion already. So their courtyard is where they put all the furniture and everything else they kept outside. So that is mamish like an extension of the house. So he's saying that in the courtyard, which means in your house, you can wear a kosa. Says the Gemara, Im kain of solo he nachta basla Avram Avinu she yeshavas nachal baila. Now here's a big machlek is a shaynim here. According to some of the shaynim, the pshat is, if you're going to tell me that even in a chutzah you have to wear your head partly covered, when is a woman allowed to be herself without a cover at all in front of a husband? In other words, when Rashi learns, a lot of time learn that in the house a woman does not have to cover her hair or including a chutzah at all, zero. Others learn, of course, a kosa is good enough in the chutzner. You have to cover your hair, but in the house, you don't have to be so particular that that none of the hair should be exposed. And even though the Zohar says that even in the house you shouldn't have any hair exposed. So
you want to say is that the mother of who was it? The wife of the
Rabbi
in the house never saw her.
Yeah, Kodesh Beisi exactly has all these things going. Yeah. So that was the chumrah she took upon herself. That's why she had to discuss. We're talking from one courtyard to another courtyard, derech mavli. In other words, it's like a side little street. So it's not the house. So the Gemara in the house, either a kosher definitely is good, like someone, or a house definitely you don't have to cover here. We're talking about the courtyard that goes to another courtyard, and in between there's like the garage, the laneway. They have a laneway. So very, very few people are there. That's what he's talking about. He's saying a kosher is good enough. But out in the street, definitely a kosher is no good. Even though Mahatayr it is good, but Das Yehuda says you have your hair completely covered. Then it's a Matava Bashuk. She's weaving in the marketplace. What's wrong with that? The matters that I said on the other. The problem is that she is exposing when she lived. Remember, had that story with Chayma by Abaya, Abaya's wife. You saw how Rabbi got so enticed by her, exposing her arms, which is not sneezy. No, she's actually sewing. She's wearing a skirt, and she's sewing there, and she's legs are spread so that and the string goes down, so your eyes automatically go with the string. You can see it fall down, and then you end up seeing parts that should be covered. And then if that's the pshat, then the word shoik does not mean a marketplace. Shoik means her thighs. She's exposing her thighs. Shmuel said no. It's talking about that she is very frivolous with young men, even though she's a married woman. We once walking behind a book. This Arab woman, not a Jewish woman, she was sitting as she was going ahead and she was sewing with Tava. She had this ball of yarn and she was sewing that at Kenega Panel, and the string right there, Kenega Panel came down before her. As soon as she saw us, she broke her needle. She threw it down. She said to me, young man, Havli Palach, bring me my needle. In other words, she wanted to start a conversation. Rabuka Milsa said something there. My but what exactly he said? He muttered something under his breath. What did he say? He said, this is what the Mishnah meant, even though she was not a Yiddish person, but was saying this is the Mishnah meant. That's sewing in the marketplace. Look what she did. And that's what Abban meant. Amaba, that's what he said. Abban said, Medaberes im kol adamamba. That the other one that she's talking to you, engaging. Interesting. You have a machlekes in a story what Marukva muttered under his breath. That means every word that a Talmud Chacham says has to be taken into account. And know exactly. We hang more sukkah. For the sichas chulun of a Talmud Chacham, you have even in the conversations you have to learn from it. Abba Shalom says, curses out the children before him. Amar Avinu Mishmul b'mekaleles yoylidav b'fnei moylidav. We're talking about over here. She cursing out her husband's children. What do you call it? Sorry, he's cursing out the grandfather, that was the husband's father, in front of the husband's children. So the grandfather to the grandchildren. And that's also humiliating. And how do you know that a grandfather relationship to the grandchildren are just like a grandfather to the father? How you know that Bonim Arein Kebonim? The Simonach, Yaakov said, Ephraim and Menashe is Keruv Mishimili. That my grandchildren are just like my children. So a grandparent treats the grandchildren just like their own children. No. You know what she said? What we're talking about over here, when she says over here in Kal, she says, I wish that a lion would eat up your grandfather from the children. In other words, and not only maybe she said something degrading, but actually gave some kind of a curse that the grandfather should die. Yeah. Tavon Abakam says, Afa Kolonis with a loud voice, my Kolonis, women a loud voice, when they're discussing intimate things, intimacy, he says loud enough for all the neighbors to hear. So Rashi adds the word that they're having an argument about Tashmish, whether you should, whatever it is, and the neighbors hear, that's very embarrassing. Not an argument. They're actually having just Tashmish, but people can hear. We actually had worse than that. Chagiga that Rav Kahana sat under Rav's bed to learn all the dinim how to behave. Yeah, exactly. So Gemara says, if you're telling me that she just has a loud voice and can't help herself, and therefore there's no, intimacy is not discreet, so that's a flaw, that's a defect. Why don't we learn that in the Mishnah? That later on we're going to talk about different movement flaws that she has, defects that a person that can't live with it. Why isn't this included? You're right. It's clearer to learn the first way. It's nothing to do with the fact that when they're having an argument about intimacy, and everybody can hear. So the next Mishnah. He says somebody gets a woman engaged, almanas, on the condition she'ain aleha nidorim. He gets engaged with his woman. He's on the condition that you're not a person that constantly makes vows and asks yourself things. Turned out to be, he made it tonight. Tell me that she is. He's ain makadeshes. There's no point for a divorce here. You made it tonight. You didn't fulfill it tonight. You breached it tonight, and therefore there's no condition. Mekatos. Now, case number 2. Big Machlekes Gemara, we'll see tomorrow whether this is case number 2 or continuation of case number 1. So there's 2 ways of learning the next case. Either konsistam, one way is it's a new case, didn't make any conditions. Stam, got married to her, but even turned out to be that she is a woman that had all these different vows in place. She won't do this, she won't do that. Is teitze shalei b'ksuvah. He said, I can't live with a woman in Nadronis, so she goes out and forfeits ksuvah. The other way of learning Pshat is this is a continuation before. He made it tonight. But when he came to the moment of getting married, he didn't reiterate that tonight. They just went ahead and got married. So what do we say? Do we assume that he's still relying on the original tonight, or do we say that it's a continuation, that it's a new thing? He ignored it tonight. He's meichel it tonight. He decided it doesn't matter. I love her so much that I don't really care, and they got married, and therefore he still have to give a get. But as far as the ksuv is concerned, because he made that tonight in the beginning, as far as money is concerned, he doesn't have to pay money. We'll see in the Gemara Machlekes Rabbi Shmuel. Said the Mishnah further, the same idea. The Menashe about woman, he said a condition, you have no defects, and he's a woman full of defects. Anyway, there's no kedusha. Konsistam, what have you married? They mentioned a word about a woman. Benim to Mumin, found out there were woman is teitze shalei b'ksuvah. Again, she goes out, but without a ksuvah. And again, the same Machlekes is what a continuation or not. Call a woman praising Mekayim, praising Nashim. We learn about all the list of women that are possible disqualified from working in the base of Mikdash. Also, these are grounds for divorce. Says the Gemara. This very same Mishnah, word for word, is a Masechta Kedushin, which is that if you make a condition that there's no Tanaim, it turned out to be a Tanaim, the entire Kedushin unravels, and you don't even require a get. So why does Rebbe repeat this Mishnah twice? Says the Gemara. Now we learned this Mishnah in Amega Kedushin. Exactly like that. So Gemara explains. Here, the main purpose of bringing the Mishnah is to teach you the second clause, which is that if konsistam, she gets a get, but she forfeits a ksuvah. And Tana Kedushin, utter ksuvas. Once you mentioned the second case, you already mentioned the first case also, that there's no Kedushin. The whole thing is a mekach, a mistake. But Hasa Kedushin is clear. There the Gemara talks about Kedushin. So the primary reason for bringing this Mishnah is it's all about Kedushin. It's Tana Ksuvas, utter Kedushin. So therefore, it mentions Ksuvas because of Kedushin. What kind of Nadarim are we talking about? That you say, I can't live this way. Is things where she completely deprives herself from things, and that therefore affects your relationship or you're under with her. She won't eat meat. She wants to be a vegan. She won't drink any wine at all, even though we learned before the end of Alpha P that women didn't drink too much wine, but a little bit of wine. The big day Tzefayim, which we had yesterday, that she refuses to wear colored clothes and have a life. And these things bother you. Those are the kind of darim that affect you, and we say there's no Kedushin. Tanya Namihachi, we learned as well. What kind of darim we're talking about? We're talking about the things that inu nefesh, where she is actually that she's denying herself things. So the Chabal says, Papa asked the question, when we limit it, we're saying not all Nadarim, it's only Nadarim which is self-denial, which impacts on your relationship. On which case of the Mishnah are we referring to over here? Where the first case in Mishnah is he said, I make a condition, there's no Tanaim, and it turned out to be the word, there's no Kedusha. Is that what we're saying? Only these kind of Tanaim? Or no, we're talking about the Sefer. Konsistam, you married her and turned out to be Nadarim, you divorce her, she forfeits the Ksuvah. But if you make it tonight, then any kind of neder. I don't care if I make it tonight. I said I don't want you to make. I don't want to be a woman who makes a dorm. I don't care what the neder is. You may neder you won't walk down that particular street. Maybe that's also grounds to say there's no kedushin. Since if we're talking about we made a condition explicitly, I don't want you to have and keep the cup copied. If since he clearly said I don't want you to make any nadarim, then I feel like what kind of net it is? A net is a net. I don't want it. Must be l'chayda safer. But Papa concludes it's talking about where you didn't make any tanoim at all, but it turned out to be that she makes nadarim. So it depends. If it's nadarim, that's a minor thing. Who cares? But if it's nadarim that where she's self-denial, then we say that you give her a get and she forfeits her ksubah. Rav Ashi says no. Rav Ashi says la'ela mareisha. Even in the beginning, even the Reisha, when he made a Tanai and he said, I don't want you to make Nadarim. And if she does, the Kedushin is no Kedushin. He's immediately things that people generally are concerned about. Then when he made a Tanai, that's his concern is valid. But nobody else cares about this Tanai. She wants to make a Tanai, doesn't want to walk down this particular street or doesn't want to go walk at night in this particular area. Then, yeah, well, exactly. Then even though you made a Tanai, it doesn't matter. It's not grounds to say that there's no Kedushin. We'll stop over here. We'll continue. Midshem starts the Gemara.